What's up, gamers? Hi, wanderers, and hello, internet. Recently streamed was the latest campfire chat from the Diablo 4 devs at Blizzard, which delivered massive updates coming in Season 2 for Diablo 4 Season of Blood. Update 1.2.0 will be live when a new season launches on October 17th. However, the full patch notes have already been posted by Blizzard, and there are sweeping changes happening across the realm of Sanctuary. Community lead Adam Fletcher sat down with lead class designer Adam Jackson and associate game designer for class Charles Dunn to hold an extensive Q&A and slide presentation to discuss update 1.2.0, which is also the largest patch to date for Diablo 4. Links to the campfire chat and full patch notes will be in the description below, but here is the TLDR from the live stream of the most impactful changes delivered by the dev team. Let's take a look. During the campfire chat, the devs laid out a Season of Blood strategy, which focused on addressing player feedback and making systemic improvements. There was a 5-point strategy: update elemental resistances, make uniques more exciting and impactful, class improvements to address commonly talked about issues, update damage buckets, vulnerable plus crit is greater than everything else, and make our changes a bonus. Resistances. Elemental resistances are being overhauled in Season of Blood. Here's how they currently work and how they'll work in both seasonal and eternal realms once Season of Blood begins. Currently, in Season of the Malignant, elemental resistances were inverse multiplicative. This means that you receive the same effect life each time you gained a bonus, but the nominal value of the bonus was less. For example, if you had 20% poison resistance and then received 20% more, you would have 36% poison resistance in total. Elemental resistances had no hard cap. You could gain them indefinitely. Armor provided physical damage reduction as well as damage reduction from all elements, which imposed on the role of elemental resistances. This made armor so powerful to the point that it outperformed individual elemental resistance. Rings and amulets had 2 inherent stats that gave resistance to 2 random elements. In Season of Blood, elemental resistances are now additive and have a base cap of 70%. This cap can be raised with new effects that increase the cap to a hard cap of 85%, such as skills, paragon boards, elixirs, etc. Armor now only reduces physical damage. The more resistance you have against a particular element, the more valuable each percentage is for total effective life. For example, going from 60 to 65% fire resistance is much more valuable than going from 20 to 25%. Rings and amulets will still have 2 inherent stats: resist to all elements and a random elemental resistance. In Season of Blood, elemental resistances will become a much more important part of your character's survivability. Our goal here is to present a puzzle to solve of how to reach the maximum base of elemental resistance, while also giving you the tools to solve that puzzle through methods such as itemization, the skill tree, elixirs, and your paragon board. We also provide a base amount of resistance to all elements in jewelry to prevent players from falling behind in any individual resistance. Around level 80, you should be able to maximize your elemental resistances at the 70% base maximum. There's a journey to solve the resistance puzzle, but it is one that you will eventually solve. Then you can move on to other stats that you want to prioritize for your characters. It's not about whether you will reach the maximum, but more about what methods you choose to get there. Unique items. We've heard the overwhelming community feedback that unique items aren't as exciting and impactful as they need to be. In Season of Blood, we've done a large design rework on our unique items and updated nearly all of them in the game. The following is our 4-fold strategy to how we're updating our unique items currently, and the philosophy we want to adhere to for our uniques to have special properties in the future. Here are some theoretical examples. Adding completely new stats to unique items. Example: bonus spirit generation while tornadoes are active is not a normal stat, but could potentially exist on a unique. Number 2, allowing existing stats that roll on unique to roll in increased ranges. Example, bonus fire damage normally rolls between plus 15 to 25%, but on a unique, it could roll between plus 30 to 45%. Number 3, adding stats to slots where they typically would not exist. Cooldown reduction can't normally roll on a weapon, but it can on a unique weapon. And number 4, updating unique powers and effects. A unique power requires shooting enemies from behind to deal bonus damage. Now, this power deals bonus damage on much simpler conditions, such as hitting enemies 5 times or dealing more damage all the time. The following are some examples of our updates that you can look forward to finding. Rain of Arrows cooldown reduction has now been added to the Word of Hakan unique. Larger existing stat ranges. The stat range for non-physical damage here has been significantly increased. Adding stats to new slots. Increased ranks of Death Blow have been added to this unique item stats. Updated unique effects. Unique effects are far more likely to activate more frequently and be more effective. We sometimes see a unique with a potentially powerful effect fall, and I mean by the wayside due to lack of specific stats that are too important to ignore. In this vein, you'll see that our unique items will have key stats for the builds they fit in far more often, including powerful new or thematic stats that relate to their effect. We're hoping that this will reduce the opportunity cost of playing with these items, which should entice players to try them out more often. Damage buckets. How damage is calculated in Diablo 4 is also receiving an overhaul. Before, damage sources such as critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and overpowered damage were in different buckets, and when these buckets mixed with each other, the full amount of bonus damage from each bucket was multiplied together. This meant the most effective way to increase your damage was to get as much bonus critical strike damage and bonus vulnerable damage, and then critically strike vulnerable enemies. Because access to these two buckets was generally more attainable than something like overpowered damage, which has a fixed chance to occur at 3%, most builds that did not take advantage of this multiplicative synergy fell behind. This is all changing with Season of Blood. There will be different damage buckets, but now only the base amount of bonus damage that these methods provide will be multiplicative. The rest of the bonus damage to these categories will be additive when they are combined. The base bonus multiplicative damage these categories provide are vulnerable damage times 20%, critical strike damage times 50%, overpowered damage times 50%. Overpowered damage. Additionally, we fixed some issues with how overpowered damage is calculated, so in Season of Blood, it'll be much more competitive as a damage source compared to before. Your character profile will also display this bonus damage through, though the math is a little complex under the hood, here's a breakdown of how it works with the following example. In this case, we are showing how much bonus vulnerable damage the player will inflict on an enemy. The player gets the standard times 20% bonus damage that vulnerable damage provides, and they have an additional plus 18% from gear and no other bonus vulnerable damage. The calculation to find their bonus vulnerable damage would be the following. In the interest of avoiding extremely long tooltips, they will not specify any additional multiplicative sources of damage. These types of damage bonuses are uncommon overall, so it's less vital to include on a tooltip. If the damage bonus value doesn't match up based on the additive bonus alone, it is likely from having a multiplicative damage bonus on your character. So what does this all mean? With these changes, we expect the following to happen. Player damage numbers will be lower overall due to the lower multiplicative synergy of mixing different damage buckets. However, monsters and enemies have been rebalanced around the new player power. You can still kill the monsters you were killing before about just as quickly. Mixing damage types will still be powerful, but less mandatory for all builds. Number 3, individual damage sources will be much more equal in value. As an example, damage over time in overpower builds will now be much more competitive than they were previously. And 4, monsters and enemies have been rebalanced around the new player power. You should not experience a significant difference in your effectiveness from these changes. Since we're lowering the baseline bonus that players get from mixing damage types, this also creates an exciting design space where we can reinsert that multiplicative damage via other methods where the player has the choice to opt into and build around that power. Our overall goal with these changes is to reward players for investing into their primary vector of damage and to be competitive for doing that, while also giving them the tools to find other vectors of damage scaling as they customize their character and progress further in the game. Class improvements. In addition to systemic changes, we're making a slew of balance updates and general improvements to our classes to address community feedback. A couple examples of the types of updates you can expect are the following. For sorcerers, Incinerate's ramp-up time for its bonus damage has been reduced from 4 to 2 seconds. For druids, the free skills from Nature's Fury now count as both Earth and Storm skills. Another way we are looking to improve the experience of build creation is through adding scaling effects to many mechanics across all classes. As we mentioned previously in our changes to damage buckets, because we no longer inherently have so much multiplicative baseline damage, we now have the opportunity to give these bonuses to players in other areas. The following are some examples of this in action. For the Barbarian, Blood Rage now increases all the Barbarians' damage based on their damage while berserking bonus. For the Rogue, Victimizes explosion damage increases as the player builds their vulnerable damage bonus stat. Our goal with these changes are twofold. We're aware that our damage bucket changes in a vacuum would result in a lower player power. However, we're balancing monster power to compensate for these changes to keep player power at a similar level. We also want to add some of that power back in a more interesting way. We want our players to have a more nuanced experience with their itemization, particularly as players get into the latter portions of the game. We're particularly interested in how this combines with our unique item changes, since stats that normally were competitively inferior now potentially have a chance to shine in specific builds that can take advantage of them. And there you have it, the TLDR from the Diablo 4 developers Campfire Chat. A lot of information is provided in the patch notes for update 1.2.0. Again, that will be going live with the launch of Season 2, Season of Blood on October 17th. Links for the Campfire Chat, as well as the full patch notes, will be in the description below. But more importantly, what are your thoughts on what we just read here today? What are your thoughts on the Campfire Chat, the previous dead stream, all the information provided in the patch notes for update 1.2.0? Season 2, Season of Blood is looking and shaping up to be pretty significant. I'm very much looking forward to the vampiric powers on how these updates are going to affect the overall gameplay. It's an exciting time either to start playing Diablo 4 or hop back in after you've taken a break from the game. Again, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you in Sanctuary, Wanderers. Thank you for watching. Likes and shares are kindly appreciated. And subscribe for more Diablo 4 content. Peace.